might be people who might take you for a ride. So what's happening with the US right now? They've outsourced a lot of things. So countries like India, China, they're developing the know-how. The development of know-how has stopped, and that's what we're facing right now. So you've got to learn as a startup. It's absolutely important to know your law, know your accounts, know your TDS, know your sales tax, know your service tax, because a service professional has to deal with 25 other people. Unless you know it yourself, you're aware of it, you are aware of what your rights are, you're aware of what you're doing. It's your job to learn it. That's my point.
I totally agree with that.
You might not know, nobody knows anything when he starts up, right? But you can always learn. There are ways and means in which you can just go on the net, go on these websites. These days, these government websites are very informative. You can go on to forums. You can ask your service provider. He'll tell you. It makes his job so much more easy. I'll tell you. We started out. We had to pay TDS. That's the first thing that any company that is growing checks in with. TDS. कितना TDS काटना है? क्या करना है? Once you don't know, you always have to pick up the phone and talk to your chartered accountant saying TDS कितना काटना है. And then he's busy. If he knows you don't know anything, he'll take you for a ride. अच्छा सर ऐसे कर लो, ऐसे कर लो. अच्छा आप कर लो, हम देख लेंगे. That is the worst thing that you can encounter with any professional. Never get into that. कर लो, हम देख लेंगे. Never do that. Do it right the first instance. If you don't do it right the first instance, वो देख लेंगे में मारे जाओगे. I mean, I'm just telling you my personal experiences. It happens with export. A lot of times you have to invoice properly. Your invoices as per FEMA have to be, if you're in export, you have to be very, very careful about that. You've got to learn those regulations. As per FEMA, your invoices have to be in paper. They have to be, every date as well as the number has to be. I mean, it's with all, but in FEMA there are specific regulations. अब कर लोगे, हम देख लेंगे में. Ultimately, when the taxman comes calling, or these people come calling, that's the problem that you face. In ROC procedures, the same thing happens. So you've got to learn it yourself. That's fine.
I totally agree with you, but if we talk about the service providers or the information, from where information we can get, I go to the internet, I see what all needs to form a company. So I have all the information with me. Then I visit district court or court and ask a lawyer, what should I do? I have this business and what should I do? He says go with the proprietorship, but there's no need of company right now. Then I go to the second person.
The lawyer is not aware about the company. Right?
So it's just, I totally agree that I need to go to a professional person, and I believe I've been missing on that. So
law as a field is very vast these days. A person who goes to the court never knows how a company is incorporated, right? There are different surgeons for different surgeries. As a doctor, right? A heart surgeon cannot do a brain surgery, right? So similarly, a litigator cannot advise you on corporate laws. If you need to do a merger, you will go to a merger and acquisition specialist. If you're into litigation, you'll go to a litigator. If you need to acquire some real estate, you'll go to a real estate attorney. If you want to set up your equity share purchase agreement, you'll go to a corporate lawyer. If you need to do your IPR, you'll go to an IPR expert, right? So if you are going to a wrong person, that is again you need to decide on this, whether you are going to a right person, whether he is competent enough to advise on that. अगर आज मेरे को कुछ मालूम ही नहीं है, तो मैं आपको टरकाऊंगा ही.
Totally agree. That's what we all startups are missing.
इसकी जरूरत नहीं है.
To set up a company, you will anyways go to a properly chartered accountant or company secretary, not go to a litigator. So you back them down.
Luckily, I'm giving you the experience of the chartered accountants. I met two people and they said you don't need a company, go for all this thing. So I said, why? So there's no answer to that.
Let's take the question. What kind of business are you in?
I'm into web development business and education and training.
Are you exporting a lot?
Yes. All my businesses from US and all. I don't even.
You have to absolutely go in for a company or a limited liability partnership. Solely because of liability issues. Nothing should come on your personal interest. Right. That's not important. What a company company can take that down.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Company is a separate legal entity. Right. If anything goes wrong, the law will go behind your company. not as your personal requirement. And every company is a limited liability, right? Tomorrow if you run into losses of 1,000 of crores and if your company is only limited to 100 crores, so that your liability is limited. Once your personal assets, whether you're a director, whether you're a CMD or you're the managing director, will never come into play when your company is running into losses. Company being a separate legal entity means if something goes wrong, the company can be sued in the name of the company, right? So 90% of the cases where companies involved in the offences, companies go away because you cannot send company behind the bars, right? Until and unless director was personally responsible. If you see IPC, there is no word as vicarious liability in our IPC. But the moment you go to IT Act, Section 85 says that whatever company is doing, the person, the director who is responsible for day-to-day services will be responsible. So it depends upon the statute to statute. What kind of a thing you are doing, what kind of a company secures you a lot. The moment you are a partnership concern, your partner is responsible. Proprietorship, you are responsible for each and everything. So company is the best thing to do and it doesn't cost you much. The compliances issue and the other thing, they are not much. The moment you do for the first year, it will follow.
Just, and also, one more, I always encourage people to take that up. There's a Limited Liability Partnership Act which has recently been enacted. Limited liability partnerships are possible now, right now, in India. So that's another it's an easy way of setting up your unit. So have a limited liability partnership in place. That's again, it has all the benefits of a company like a limited liability in as far as liabilities is concerned, plus the ease of a limited liability partnership. If you have a partnership, not like a limited liability, but just a partnership, it needs to be registered. An unregistered partnership is a problem.
Another issue. I'm sorry, go ahead.
One more thing I would like to ask is, being in my business, I have around 4 or 5 ventures, which all of them requires a trademark, at least for the logo. And I've applied for one, and when I call my lawyer to ask about what's the update on that, and I get an answer that it takes 3 years, we haven't got anything on that. So there's no letter from the government officials. There's nothing that I know that is it being filed or not. He showed me that the letter that he has filed this thing, but I haven't received any kind of receipt from the government officials that it's in process or something. So can I put the TM on that, or can I?
Yeah, you can put a TM once you apply. You get a AFR, and after filing receipt, after that you can put a TM, like a small TM on the top, and it takes 3 years. He's right, if there's no communication, what can you do if there's no communication? From the government side, there is no communication. But you can put a TM, he's given you the AFR, there's no need to suspect.
Actually, I haven't got any document, and I asked him, he said that...
just ask him for an AFR. And it's called...
Is there any way that we can get a duplicate AFR from any other department?
You can go online and check, or you can just put in a query to the trademark office. They're very quick to respond to it.
I think one issue which is very relevant is that I would strongly recommend that you must inform yourself. You must inform yourself is the important bit, but whether you want to learn it yourself depends upon your ability to spare time at the end of the day. Startups traditionally have always been time conscious because they're focusing on their primary activity, but if you can afford to spare time, nothing to beat learning yourself. It helps you in the long run. As far as individual issues of IPR is concerned, I think in this day and age where information is so easily accessible, you just have to take the initiative. So even if your lawyer is unable to help for what you think doesn't sound very convincing but which might be actually true, it is a fact that we have a huge backlog of IPR related issues, whether it's largely in trademarks, it's actually law. But what has happened is that the processes are also being improved. Therefore, if you inform yourself that certain registries have improved, online updation of records, inform yourself with that. You have access to that. Surprisingly, some of these registries also reply to emails. I mean, it can be your lucky day that they... So there's nothing we can do. He's the one who is there. That can... Anyway, please, yeah. I'm sorry. Can you just take... Sure. First and foremost, we must realize that all professions are bound by regulatory norms. The Lawyers are bound by Bar Council of India and the Advocates Act. So anything which impinges on either of the two, certainly the law is the Advocates Act, and the Bar Council, the local, the national one can take action against the lawyer for misrepresentation, for cheating, for fraud. So you have a remedy there. Similarly with chartered accountants, you've got the Chartered Accountants Institute, with company secretaries. Every professional is governed by his parent body. And those parent bodies are bodies where you can complain. Yes, it's not the done thing, because a lot of people don't want to pick up a fight with a lawyer who fights with everybody. A lot of people don't want to mess with an accountant because he's better at numbers than you are. But you do have redressals. I've had a lot of clients who've come up and said that they wanted to change services from a chartered accountant to another chartered accountant. They don't know how to go about it. It's a sensitive issue. He's handling your day-to-day transactions. And if you tell him, I don't want you from tomorrow, he might just mess things up. Yeah. But then there are ways to go about it. You have remedies available and you can do it. Nobody can bind you down. If you're unsatisfied with service, you're unsatisfied. But yes, there is a way to go about it. That's the operative word. You just can't go and snatch your files and walk out of the office. That kind of thing. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mohan, and I'm in the business of helping startup, get started. So, my concern is about the thing that you said, that you have to get started from day one as let's say company. There are a lot of benefits of it, but I am a strong believer of let's get working first and then let's figure out what stuff is there. So because I believe that with startup it happens a lot, that they evolve, change a lot. Whatever product they are building, whatever business they are into, it would continue to change in the first 6 months or 2 months, 1 year. I personally believe that they should just get working, get into what works, what doesn't, build up the product, talk to customer, make a prototype. So once you are sure that this is what business you want to be, and that is the time I think you should build up a company, depending on what business you are into. If you are really into very, very critical business, where you need to take your ideas and stuff like that, or where your liabilities can go anywhere suddenly, then you might get into company mode. But otherwise, I really believe that you just get started with the easiest thing, a proprietorship or a partnership or an LLP.
I think it all depends on the nature of business. I think you can't, I would differ with you where I would put this as a generalization. I think it depends entirely on what your business model is. If your business is of a kind which demands a certain character, for instance, if you're doing an outsourcing business where you are the vendor, then you have to be an entity which is registered. How can you think whether you want to be a limited liability or a company? How do you get money to start? So things like that. So I think as a thumb rule, I will not say that you should bide time to see what your character would be. But when you say that let's get down to work, I would certainly put that out of the 100% energy, you should put 25% to thinking what work. Not the core area of your competence, but how am I going to do with, how am I going to deal with that? So I would suggest that.
It's like chicken and egg theory. It's like chicken and egg theory, right? Somehow or the other you have to get this in place, right?
Yeah, but it's chicken and egg theory. But again, if you cannot journalize that, not get started with the company. Again, you should not also journalize that you think everybody.
Not really. I would say that you don't have to look at the business structure when you immediately start it, but you must have a blueprint in mind. Yeah. Incorporation is a process which is easy to do and extremely difficult to get out. Therefore, rushing into being a company is also something which can be an issue. But then I would imagine that as a startup, you have weighed your options of what are you looking at, how long are you in this business, what is the client demanding, all those issues. I again would not say this as a generalization because I think your approach is a little unique. I'll be honest with you. A lot of people want a certain degree of security. And a company brings you that security. After all, realize Mohit by himself standing and Mohit Private Limited standing, there are two different ways to look at it. From that point. Yes, please go.
Same question again. It's just like how much do I need an official commercial address to start a company? To register a company?
Yes, you do.
So the problem is
it can be a residence address.
No, you have issues, I'll tell you where. You'll have issues opening bank accounts to start with. And no bank would want a company's account without requisite proof of incorporation. For instance, you can't just have, if your name...
They're opening current accounts for proprietors, so...
No, they can. A proprietorship is different. Yes, proprietorship they can. They go on a statement, a rubber stamp which says you're a proprietor. But again, it depends on what you're looking at. Is your client ready to deal with you in a proprietorship manner? There are taxation issues, especially in an outsourcing model.
But I guess there is no issue with the current accounts with the proprietary accounts from last 4 months.
Yes.
You cannot have a current account for a proprietary account.
No problem.
The thing is, the startup can start from a garage, like I did.
Sure.
So now, we are not able to run the business from one room. We need
more space.
More space. So, is it the right time to think of a company, or should I have been, keeping all my accounts from the day
You
one?
can have your registered office as a garage, and you can have your branch office wherever in this country.
But you're saying that it's difficult to register a company if you have if you do it in a residential place.
No.
The repercussion, you should be prepared for the repercussions of that. To have commercial activity in a residential place has a lot of other repercussions. So be prepared with that.
Yeah.
I mean, your electricity, your consumables and things like that, that is an issue. If you think it's fine, you can run this business with a registered office in a residential place, so be it. But you must know that under the law, you're entitled to run non-commercial activities in a non-commercial place, a commercial activity in a commercial place. So you're actually violating the law. You should know that.
If we go with that, the commercial thing itself, will the commercial area would be considered as the only room consumption, or the whole house consumption?
No. The entire premises, because you can't define what your workspace is to an electricity meter reader who comes in and says, "Didi, तुसी इतने की कर रही थी, मैं इतने काम कर रही थी, उतने सौदा भी ना काम तुसी उतने कर रही थी." उनका मैं पूरा commercial लाऊंगा. So how will you justify it to him? So I mean, petty issues you can avoid all this. And if you already registered something, you can always apply for a transfer. You can transfer your registered office to a commercial space. So I mean, it all depends. Just one more thing, and then we come on to you when you say that you address this.
And you can always have your registered office does not need to have your office. A registered office is used for all communication with the authorities, banks, etc. So you can continue to live in a registered office address as your house or your garage or whatever, and have another office of the company or the LP or whatever which is operational. Yes, that's what a lot of people do, and you can get there's nobody who really I've seen at least, but he's right, but nobody I've seen who can actually come to you and say you're doing your commercial stuff. But again, you've got to be careful.
There's a law in the UK where if you have written something, said you've drawn something or written literature, piece or something like that, you can just mail a packet to yourself. The stamp date, it's sealed, the packet is sealed, the stamp date of the post office counted as proper date for the document. Is it applicable in India too? Is it something like that?
So what is the intent of mailing it to yourself? When you've written it, why do you need to mail it to yourself?
No, for approving for date sensitive documents,
okay.
Anything that is done in ordinary course of business, and you can prove that it was done in ordinary course of business and proper accounts were maintained, is deemed to be acceptable as per the Evidence Act. We've done that in a lot of cases where people have mailed themselves the ideas that they have come up with, or they've just sent a mail, or there are some sites where you can just send your mail, have your bills registered. Some of them are acceptable in Indian law, some of them are not. But in this case, if it's an ordinary course of business, preferably a registered letter. Absolutely a wonderful way of maintaining a date. If you've got an idea, if you've got to prove you were using a logo at a particular date, absolutely the best idea and the cheapest idea you can come up with. Great. And we follow a lot of UK law, so there we go. Yes. Yes.
Are these patents, trademarks enforced internationally?
So this is the entire jurisprudence in itself. How it works is, for a patent, there are two ways again. There's a WIPO way, which is the World Intellectual Property Rights Intellectual Property Organization, or then there is which is like the PCT way, where you get about 2.5 years to enter a third country or enter a bouquet of countries within a specified time. The other is if you are looking at 2 or 3 countries or 1 or 2 countries, India, US, UK, then you can always, within 1 year of applying in India, you can enter any of those countries with the same idea. With trademarks, there is another Madrid protocol that you follow. You can take advantage of the trademark that you are that you have applied for in one country. Most countries require that you have business interests in the foreign country that you are applying your trademark in. So again, it's a procedure where, on a reciprocal basis, countries accept and accept the trademarks or intellectual property of various countries. Even copyrights, you don't need to even apply. I'll give you a very interesting example. One of the most famous names in the region. It's a government entity. They've been working with several. They've been exporting their goods to different countries. Now, in each country, the people they've been exporting goods to have registered their trademark as their own. And now, with the result that the Indian companies being stopped from exporting those goods outside India. Now that entire thing of enforcing your rights is going on. So that's how it happens. If you've got an Indian trademark and you're exporting somewhere, take advantage of that Indian trademark or the Indian patent and within time and apply in the foreign country. As I said, patent idea within 1 year or within 1 year, basically you have to take a call whether you want to go outside India or not. If you've got a patent for it, if it's a patentable idea, then that's what the patent act is for. They can't copy it. If it's an original idea and that idea is patentable.